Hey everyone, it's Lisa Bongean from Primitive Gatherings, and we are working on Summer Romance, and it is time for borders. All right, so what do we need to do for borders? I have prepped a bunch of things here. This means left border, and I have all my flowers and my stems, and then top border. I have those all packaged and my leaves in here because guess what? I already did one side and one top, and then I saved one top and one bottom and one side to do on camera for you. So I have all those ready to go, and then you want to tape your pattern piece together. This is our border, and depending on which size you're doing, I drew some lines. This sheet here in our pattern, and don't mind all my mess here, this is a working copy. I took magic markers and I colored in all the different colors, so I moved the colors around nicely on the outer border. But every one of these shows your middle, but just to do that, my middle is here for 16 blocks. Right here. 9 is in the middle of the middle block, and then 4 is in the middle of the 2 blocks. So I kind of did that for you, but you don't need to do that, only depending on what size you are going to be working on. Right. But before I do anything on the borders, you can see the quilt behind me has 9 by 4, so I have the 12 blocks there. Here's my 16th one. I saved one block to trim on camera for you, so you can see how I do that. I think I'm in the middle. Does that look okay, Kaylee? Yep. Right there in the middle? All right. So you're going to do this to all of your blocks if you haven't already. Now we need to trim to 12.5. So what I like to do is half of 12.5 is 6.25. So I find my 6.25 and I kind of just plunk it on the middle of the flower there. All right. And then I kind of look. Now I already trimmed 15 blocks, so I kind of know that I need to even out this side a little bit. That's not always perfect when you put that down. So if I'm looking at 6.25 right here in the middle, I have about 5/8 on this side, and if let me spin it around here, get back on there. If I have, where's my 6.25, 6.25, and then I have 12.5 here. So see, I know I have a lot more space on this side than I do that side. So I'm going to move that over and kind of look. All right, so if I trim 12.5 here, I'm going to have almost an inch. So a 7/8. So on this side, I'm going to make sure I have 7/8 too. So I'm just going to slide that over a smidge. So now I have between 3/4 and 7/8, and on this one now I have a half, a quarter, so this one I have 3/4, so maybe just back a little bit. But the point is, it doesn't have to be that perfect. So all I'm going to do now is kind of make sure this is straight here on the bottom, and then I'm just going to trim one edge. That's the hardest cut. All right, so once you do that one, then you turn. And now I'm going to take my 12.5 and put it right on that edge. And here I can make an adjustment too, just in case. So I'm about 3/4, and here I'm about 3/4. So it looks pretty good this way. Make sure that's all lined up. Press firmly down, and then trim. I know I just trimmed not against my ruler there. Okay, so now we got to turn again. And I'm going to go find my 6.25, make sure I got the 1/1 up there. Okay, 6.25, 6.25, I'll line up a bottom edge, check out, I'm almost 3/4 there. If I trim to 12.25, and I am 3/4 there, so I'm going to slide just a smidge over, trim, 12.5. So that first cut is always the scariest Make sure you're lined up. Everything's going good. There. All right, so that is trimming the block. Now I will be able to stitch this on the edge here of my last row, and then I can put that on and get ready for borders. But luckily I can prep borders without my quilt being totally done, because I do have 4 on this one side here. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit of a different configuration here. I'm going to grab my light box and I'll be right back. All right, so let me show you the 2 borders I have already prepped. So this one is a side. It's a little shorter, and I marked it with an R right on the very edge that's going to get trimmed off. So you see that is the right side border. All right, now this one is the bottom of the quilt. And obviously because it has the curves up on it, so this is going up. The side ones are just straight. And there's something a little weird or abnormal kind of about how we design this, and I'll show you that in a second. So those are the 2 I'm already working on, and then I have this piece left to show you that. Now I want to show you in this picture here. All right, so when you look at this quilt, usually in the center there's usually a flower right in the middle, and then everything else goes, but not this quilt. It actually just kind of goes around. It doesn't mirror image. So it just kind of just flows all the way around, and all the leaves are facing in the same direction. So kind of pay attention to that when you're laying out, so you know that everything is going around in that direction. All right, so now here is my border that I didn't rip yet. I only ripped half off. So what I did was I folded my fabric in half with the other 2, and I snipped and I ripped. And then I snipped in the middle of that and ripped. So that's what I'm going to do with this one. So this is 1 side border and 1 bottom border, but they're the same length. I like to leave them long while I'm working because I can always cut it off later. I don't want to make a mistake of putting the short side on the long piece, and little things like that happen every now and then. So I just automatically leave everything long. So here's my 2 borders. I'm using the whole width of the fabric, I guess is what I'm saying. Even though the borders on here are 9.5, but I like to leave them a little bit bigger and trim later. So all I did is do a little snip, and then I'm going to rip these borders. Now, why do we rip borders? We rip them so everything is straight, so your quilt will hang nice and flat. It won't have this to it. So if you ever had a quilt that when it was hung, it kind of does this, maybe you cut your borders and they weren't straight of grain. But when you rip borders, this ensures that they're straight of grain. Okay, so I'm going to set one aside over there. And now, because I ripped, I have this little edge here that I need to iron out, and I'm going to do that not on camera because I don't have a big ironing surface here. So I'm going to again pause and come back, and all I'm doing is ironing this little ripped edge flat. Okay? All right, I'm back from ironing both of my borders. I've ironed a crease in the middle, and this border is cut big both width and in length. So mine's about 72 inches, and I know I only need like 68.5. And I also let the selvages on as well. I don't bother ripping those off. They're going to get cut off later when we trim or on the edge. It's really nice for the long arm quilter to have that selvage on, I think. Then you never have to stay stitch or do anything there. All right, so now I got one border here. I'm just going to put that to the side, and I'm going to place my pattern kind of line it up on my light table so it's not crooked. I'm just going to put a couple pieces of tape on it so it doesn't move on me. My light board is full of tape. I should be better at pulling off all those old pieces of tape, but it is what it is. All right, so this is actually the top, so I'm going to do the big one first. Here is my center line, and like I said, it's kind of weird because my flower is over here, but over here is the center of the quilt. So I'm going to take my border, and I'm going to put it right, that fold right on that, and I'm just going to not worry about this side right now. I'm going to kind of tuck that under, get rid of all of the strings from ripping. Okay, yes, that is a thing. All right, so now on my other borders, I kind of lined up the edge of it with the edge of the paper. So that kind of just helps me keep the orientation that I am laying out each border the same. So when I trim, I'm actually not going to trim on this outside edge. I'm going to trim on the middle when I add, on this inside piece, when I add this to the quilt. This is where I'm going to trim here, not here. All right, so just for the heck of it, I'm going to place a little weight on my pattern here, on my border, so things don't move around, because that's always fun to do. All right, now watch. I'm going to put on my light box, and hopefully you can see my border there. So I know I got to get this right in the middle. There's the middle. All right, so now I can see that line there that's right in the middle, flatten it out. And I'm going to take a Sharpie. I know, a Sharpie, right? But I trust myself to do the right thing. So all I'm going to do is just do this short little line here to the center. And then I'm going to trace right in the middle of each one of these binds. And it'd probably help if my pen was a little bit better, but I didn't test it. So I'm just going to go back and forth in the middle here. And I only do right to where it hits the flower, so I know when I put my stem on, I'm going to put it a little bit past that. There you go. All right, so I did this much, and now I have to do this piece over here. And it's a corner, so I have to move it. But I'm just going to kind of lightly pick it up. And I'm going to slide it over. Like so. And then do a couple little, one more piece of tape down. Right there, yeah. Okay. So it doesn't move on me there. Okay, now I'm going to do this corner. So I can tell by this line right here. Can you see that line? All right, so this is going to be cut like a 1/4 of an inch right there. So I can draw that, but it's really going to get cut off. And I kind of make sure my line is perfectly in the center there. And then I'm going to draw on this little curvy one here for the corner. And then this one here. Okay? All right, now we have to do the other half. So I got 1/2 there. So now I'm going to pick this up. All right, we're going back this way to add a few more. Here we go. So my edge of my paper is right there. And that's just my iron regenerating. All right. So now draw in this one. And this one. And that's when it's nice to look at your diagram so you know where you are. But on my half, I have 1, 2, 3, and then the curve. So here I can move this over and draw another one for sure. Probably another 2, yep. Okay, now back to my corner. Tape still working. All right, so now that one goes there, that one's there, and here is my edge. Okay, so now all right, so you can see how now my vine is on. Okay, now it's time to put our appliques on. I so miss working on my big piece at home, but we will do the best we can here to show you how to manipulate this. All right, and luckily I have a little bit of a pressing station right here, so that will help me. All right. All right, so I have all my stems here pre-cut, and remember they have the Steam-A-Seam 2 light on them, so it's going to be nice and easy to put them on. So we're just going to pull that off. And remember that I have to overhang a little bit of this. I'm going to do this one first. And I'm going to cut. And mine's not sticking as nice as I want it to. There we go. And then another one. All right, and then I'm just going to keep going, and I'm just going to move it off onto the edge here. I know I'm not in the middle of the camera anymore, but hopefully you can see from that angle. Is that good?
That angle's good.
All right, so we're just going to run these on. And I will admit when I'm at home I can lay out a lot more at one time. I'm just going to leave them a little longer instead of trimming them. My tweezers works. I just got to take the time to pick it up. right, now on this edge here, I'm not going to press this. I'm going to leave this hang loose here because this is going to have to be attached to the other one. So I'm not going to fuse that down. I'm going to leave it kind of hang a little loose. So not going to do all the way on that edge. Okay, so there is my top border. Okay, so now let me just go back here now, and we're going to put that back where it goes, so we lining everything back up. Okay, now I'm going to take 7 of the same leaf and put them on. All right, so now I'm going to peel off, and I'm going to start placing leaves on using my light box. Now, if you don't have a light box, there is other ways to do this. You can put an overlay on, but I highly recommend this light box, especially if you do a lot of wool applique. This is going to be your friend. Trust me. So I just pick those up. And I'm not putting the last 2 on. I'm keeping those for after the border is stitched, and then I stitch it onto the quilt center. All right, so now I need my picture over there with my color so I know what color flower. I have that one right there that I have planned for the top of the quilt. So it looks like orange. So I kind of did these. I leave the paper on the back and line them up like that so they're ready to go when you need them. I probably said that in the other video, but just that's how that's going on there. All right, so then I'm going to need to find another. But I did do some sort of a little pattern here, so I want to check that out. All right, so this is what I mean. All right, so if I had that one there, then this one was next, that one, and that one. So you want to go in if you want, if you're picky like that. But that's be the way that we would do that. And so you could plan it out so every 4 was changed. And I don't feel comfortable ironing this down right now because I don't know where I am with that other, with this left side border. So I'm not going to iron that down. But this is the way you're going to do that. You're going to continually put down leaves in sets of the 7, all different, and then you're going to press in little sections just like I did those stems, and you're going to go from there. All right, so we'll be back in a bit. Okay, I took a little break and organized all my leaves, and they came out perfect, so I'm super happy about that. So all I did was take my border, and where all the leaves were pin 1, so I made sure it all came out correctly. So here I have the top border now, and you can kind of see it's on the light box, it's in order. So now I'm going to take and place all of my leaves onto my background. And I'm still going to fray check all of these leaves once they're on because it's just nicer to stitch them with a little fray check on them, especially if they're a little fuzzy like some of these are. Okay, so this one's a little close to the edge. Oh, I think I can still get that one on. In the front here, I've laid out all of my flowers according to my diagram there. So I'm going to pick this one up then and get it right in that spot. So once I have the one set done, I'm going to just slide it over and steam that one down. All right, so we'll slide it back on. Make sure it's even with the top. Okay. So there will be times when you don't get a really good shot here because I can't see from that far back because that light is fairly light. You could darken them all if you have a hard time seeing them, or I'm going to show you something that really works well too. And can anybody guess what that is? I'm going to show you. I'm just going to turn off all the lights in the room, and that way you can see exactly easier where all of these go. So 7 leaves, and then I'm going to pick up my next color here, peel the paper off the back, find its shape right there. And what's fun about wool applique, if something shifts a little bit, it's not the end of the world. As long as you kind of keep it on track, it's no big deal if, like, you can't probably see this, but this is like a smidge under and I can see it doesn't matter. That's why applique is so fun, because it is so forgiving in some of these areas. It doesn't have to be as precise as our patchwork does. All right, so do you see how I'm just going along? And you can just keep using the same part of your pattern too. You don't have to keep moving it. As long as it's under or over, you can just use that. So I'm just going to do one last one here, pick up my flower, because you get the idea of what you need to do from here on out. So if you ever see that, just give that a little bit of a trim and a little fray check, and that won't keep fraying. So that one goes there. And then now I need the plaid leaves, and those are right here. So I'm going to peel those off. All right, Kaylee, why don't you go hit the lights off? And I want to see if they can see this easier with the lights off. So we're experimenting live. All right, so she shut the overhead lights off, but we still have some other lights here on that. But you see how that kind of works when you can shut off the upper lights. Obviously, you're not going to be videoing yourself when you're doing this like I am, but you kind of get how this is just going to keep going and keep moving, doing one little section at a time, steaming each one down, because it's, you could do this on your ironing board, because sometimes you could put your light box right on your ironing board and slip that off, but I just find it's just easy just to move it over and fuse down one leaf and one flower each time. All right, so Kaylee can go hit those lights back on. But I wanted you to understand that sometimes if it's hard to see, if you turn off your upper lights, you can see much better. All right, so I'm just going to continue to do this whole thing just like I did show you. Now we have to do this last side border, and it is the left side. And I kind of, you know, because you saw me do it once already, I kind of got this one ready to go. So on my side border, this is the left-hand side. So this is the left-hand side. So I'm going to find my center, which is right here, and move it this way. So I find that center, match that up, match this up here, like so. And then I'm going to, this corner box here that I drew on that, that's going to be the bottom coming on here. So I only have to put a little mark there where that stem's going to go, but this stem is going to come onto this border after it's sewn on. So I don't even going to put a stem there at first. But you see how I have my lines now drawn on, and then when you get here, you just move this again over to find that same, like that. So just keep moving it over and keep drawing until you have the right amount of vines on your side borders. So then you're going to end up with a 7, I believe, like there. And then that little one right there is going to hook on to the top or bottom, depending on, yeah, that would be the top now. So that's how I put my borders together. And I know some of you have never done that before, but just make sure you always have everything even, and then everything will be ready for me to stitch once I have everything fused down. So here are my other borders. At this one I have completely stitched now, except see how this is going to go on to the other piece here, and this is going to have to get trimmed to the right size. Yet after I'm done stitching, I always do a final trim. I don't have to trim this edge because this is nothing that goes on anything. This is the edge of the quilt. But right where it attaches to the quilt center, I'm going to have to trim that to the right side. And then I have to do the stitching in the leaves yet on this one. And then here is the side border here, the other side. I don't have as much done on this one, but you can kind of see how I left them long and they're ready to go. I have just the leaves. I always do the hard part first, or the most boring part, which on this one I think is the leaves. So then I'll stitch the stems and the flowers and then the leaf details. And I have to do that 2 more times on the top and on the left side that I just prepped today. And then hopefully, I don't know if we'll do a video on putting it together, because then it's just trimming according to your pattern and putting on 4 borders. So we'll see where we're at that time, whether I think we need to do a border or not, or maybe I'll put the sides on, put the bottom on, and maybe I'll just do putting the top or the bottom on that last border for you. All right, so maybe this is it, or maybe not. So we'll see you again in another video, or maybe we'll have one more summer romance. Bye for now.